Hello guys, welcome to another installment of Touchline Talk with me, LNobbins. Today we are going to discuss the Julián Álvarez situation, the sale itself. We'll talk about the sale itself, I think, because I think it's might be interesting to discuss whether we think it's value for money. You know, have City got enough value from it? Should City have gotten more? We'll be talking about Álvarez generally, because obviously he's leaving. So we're going to be discussing what positives he gave to City, and what negatives he gave to City. How can City go about replicating / replacing those positive traits and ruling out those negative traits? Do City need to replace Álvarez? The title of the stream is How Do City Replace Álvarez? Spoilers, I don't think we actually need to sign anyone to replace him, but that's something we will get into later in the video. So but he obviously needs to be replaced somewhere in respect of minutes and output, for example, because he played like fourth most minutes of any City player last season, so at least his minutes need to be replaced, but by who? We'll discuss that. What's it mean for City in the transfer window? What were our, what were our favourite moments from Álvarez? That I think maybe we'll end on like a positive note, wishing him well. And also, it's just a general Q&A show, as always, with Touchline Talk. So feel free to pop your comments in the chat, because, again, the whole point is that it's a back-and-forth conversational thing. I do have my tactics board over there, so I've got my touchscreen. I've just realised I've not turned on that camera, so I'll need to do some on-the-fly camera turning on, but I can certainly do that. And I say we've got the tactics board over there, so we can discuss that. And I've got a Fanta Lemon as well. It's all good in the world, and it's all go. How we are doing, guys? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Ayushi says, time to discuss who's going to come in. Yeah, the music is by Go for Gold on Spotify. Just search Go for Gold. They're very good. Jimmy says, we buy a DM. Well. That's probably what I think is what I have to say. We'll get into the specifics of it. Don't need to replace him, Savvy could play 10. Also, just get me 6-8 hybrids as LDS. I'm glad that most of us are on the same page here, but again, I still think it's a topic worth discussing. Great seeing you as well, Terrell. Hello, Louis. Would you have taken Felix? I wouldn't have. No. I tweeted rather aggressively about the idea of João Felix alone move for Felix being involved as a bargaining chip. I spoke out quite aggressively on that on Twitter, equating it to a steaming turd. Nick, hello Nick, says we should invest in another DM. Oren, considering City have one of the best academies, you could just use one of your young lads as the backup, says Oren. Do you mean as Rodri or as a 9? Bob False 9, yeah, we'll talk about the False 9 situation, because lots of people have been down on that idea online, but we'll talk about why it's not necessarily a bad thing for City. McAtee's not good. I don't know if I agree on that, to be honest. I've seen very little of McAtee, but from what I have seen, I've been very happy with what I have seen. He played a tiny cameo against Everton, not last season, the season prior. I thought he looked really tidy and nice, so that remains to be seen. And Baylor says James McAtee is the biggest winner. And shout out to Amar, who is a top super chatter on the channel. Thank you so much, Amar. Hopefully you enjoyed your profile picture at the start of the stream. Sad to see Julián Slanky go. It's Bob time. Thank you so much for your super chats. Amar, very generous and kind of you. Genuinely appreciated. Lovely, lovely. Before we briefly go, as I say, we'll go to the tactics in a moment. Let's just briefly chat about the actual price itself, though, and the structure of the deal, and just like the whole backdrop of Álvarez leaving. I think let's provide that context, and then we'll get into the tactics and how City can replace him, if City needs to replace him, etc., etc., etc. If you're watching the video, please make sure to leave a like on the video because it is free and it does really help. Yeah, it is free and it does really help. Yeah, we've got like 60 people watching, which is great. Let's see how quickly we can get to 50 likes, guys. And I'm sure more people will come in as we continue the stream. So, the actual price itself for the start, I'm not going to get this wrong. Actually, I think it is 95 million euros all with add-ons including. Now, Álvarez ultimately, fundamentally, is a good player. So let's accept for a moment that he is going to do that. Yeah, so it's 82 million pounds, 95 million euros. Now, when the first when the first bids were submitted by Atletico, it was embarrassing, to be honest. 60 million euros was the opening offer, so that's been upped by more than 50%, which is good. And I said that's a low ball at the time. I had some people in the comments going, that's not a low ball offer at all. You should take that for Álvarez. Yeah, okay. Then they tried to throw in João Felix loan deal, which was ridiculous. And as I say, now it is 95 million euros. Now, I think personally, I think that's a fair amount. I don't think it's a great amount. I don't think it's a bad amount. I think it's around what his value is. People, I don't know how much value we want to place on Transfermarkt's valuations, but they valued him at around 90 million euros, for example. I do know that there was another study done by the CIES where they ranked him like over 100 million euros. But I think 95 million euros is about fair. Again, I don't think the City have swindled Atletico. I don't think Atletico have swindled City. I think it represents about fair value. So I think it's a decent amount. It does mean the City have now got the best net spend in the league this season, which is really, really weird and interesting. But let me know what you guys think, first of all. Good amount. I think it's fine. I think City maybe could have got more, but you are dealing with a player who isn't essential to City, as we'll discuss, and wants to leave. There were a lot of years on the contract, though, so maybe City could have got a little bit more, but you also have to appreciate City are they're not dealing with PSG, and they're not dealing with another Premier League team. They're dealing with Atletico Madrid, who had to sell a player to finance this one. So I think there or thereabouts. When you consider the fact that Kolo Muani and Ramos went to PSG for similar amounts, I think that it's about right. To be honest, I think that maybe. I think City could have got over 100 million euros for it, maybe close to like 100 million pounds, but it's a bit trickier when you're not selling to a direct Premier League rival because obviously they don't have as much money generally to splash out. Musty's a big fan of Álvarez, says what's the point in life? We don't need that. Yeah, we'll get into that. Don't you worry. Hello, Donna. How you doing? Should go for somebody like Frimpong. I did a video on 3 transfer targets I wanted City to go for. I've got no interest in Frimpong because he's a winger, not a right back. If anyone's suggesting Frimpong for right back, look away. Look away. That guy's not a right back at all, in my humble opinion. So that's the Álvarez price. And also just like on a more like humanist note. Good luck to Álvarez. I hope he smashes it. Fundamentally, Álvarez is a good striker. I think he could be a great striker in the right system and in the right circumstances. He was never going to be a great player at City due to the fact that in the first instance, he was never going to start at City consistently in the position he wanted to. But also, as we've discussed, I did another video a while ago on is Álvarez good enough for City? What is his best position? I concluded Álvarez's best position is actually as a second striker. He needs another striker to bounce off realistically. He needs someone else's, as I discussed in that video months ago, his best games were when Haaland's gravity allowed him to operate and have space and take shots from distance, for example. And make those runs, exploiting Haaland's gravity. Realistically, City should not be playing a 2-striker system because it means you are forfeiting control in the midfield, especially. Atletico have also signed another striker, haven't they? So hopefully, from Álvarez's perspective, they will be doing their 2-striker situation. I think Álvarez, that's the perfect situation for him. So good luck to him. He will be very good as a second striker. He's a Champions League quality striker. He could become a great striker in those circumstances, but again, he will never be that at City. No matter how good he is at Atletico, he would never be able to replicate that at City because again, he's not really that good. He's not good enough to be a sole 9 at City. He's not good enough to play instead of Haaland at City. He's not worth it to shoehorn him into the side at the expense of others. Last season, we saw so much. It was one of my biggest gripes of last season. It's why we nearly didn't win the title. The obsession with shoehorning in Álvarez at the expense of other players, i.e. Phil Foden not being played in midfield enough because there was an Álvarez in his way. As soon as that odd experiment got ditched towards the end of the season, we saw the improved results, and City won the title ultimately. He's never going to be a great midfielder. He's always going to be an average 10, an average midfielder. He's never going to be a great 8, despite Pep trying to play him there sometimes. He's never going to be a great 10. He'll probably never be a great solo striker, but he could be a great second striker. So good luck to him. I'm sure he'll smash it if given the right system and circumstances. What I want to do now, guys, is discuss the tactical situation of what Álvarez brought to this side. Whether City needs to replicate that. We'll also be having I've had a brief look at the numbers he got in respect of output and minutes, so we're going to go discuss that now. But first of all, let me just catch up on the chat. Again, this is a Q&A show. Hello, Nitim. Club on excuse now, 115 sales. They have to bring either big signing or 2 small signing. Yeah, Nitim, we'll talk about the potential replacements. Hello, Evan. It says, I think the plan is a rebuild. Pep's a year left. Doesn't make sense for this to spend big. If no manager comes in, they're betting on academy players. But you do also want to set the groundwork for the next manager, don't you? We can't have a Alex Ferguson situation where he left that club in tatters from a squad perspective. The average age of that defense was like 87, and So we can't be doing that. Álvarez is good at pressing the goal. Yeah, we'll talk about his attributes. Absolutely. I can already see it. We get Atletico in round 16. Julián scores against us. Julián would be a great sign for Atletico. Yeah, I'm sure he'll smash it there. Got my hopes up for Rodri coaching O'Reilly this season. Hello, Puneet. Paquetá, says Arian. No. Regardless of the quality of the player he is, we're not going to touch him given the whole betting situation. Let's now go over to the tax board, and I can still see your comments over there, so feel free to keep commenting, guys. I'm just going to go stand over there now. We'll bring my Fanta Lemon over. Hell yeah. Hello, guys. You have to bear with me. I forgot to turn on my front down camera. As I say, I can still see your comments here. I've still got my Fanta, so we are good in the hood. Zubimendi for Rodri backup, says Arian. Again, we'll talk about that in the context of this. Now, let me just, don't worry about the fact this is blurred. I'm just going to do this on the fly. Look at this. There we go. That looks pretty good. Don't worry, Oren. The Knobcast is returning. Gasky just moved my that. In case you don't know what that guy is, guys, because it has been a while since we've done one. That's my podcast, my football podcast. It's a Man City and Man United podcast. I do it with my Man United friend, Gasky. He moved recently, so he's not been able to record anything. So next season, the Knobcast is returning. We might do live streams of it on YouTube, but it will also be available on Spotify and Apple. So just stay tuned. Guys, this is City's massive squad. As you can see, what we're playing next season is a 4-1-1. No. Right, so Julián. Right, let's just make a team first of all, shall we? What shall we do? Let's drop Gvardiol just for a moment. We'll pop in John Stones there. We'll do a classic Stones progression system. We'll do a cheeky 3-2 build-up because why not? Glory days, eh? We'll pop Hall in there for now. So let's have a conversation about what did Álvarez bring this City side, and do City need to replace that? How can City replicate and replace that? So last season, Álvarez played more minutes than nearly any other player. He actually featured in more games. I'm talking about the Premier League here. He featured in more games than any other player for City in the Premier League. More than Ederson, more than Haaland, more than Foden. I think it was 36 out of 38 games he featured in. Now, he didn't have the most starts, but it was still more starts than the majority. It was 31, I believe. That was more than Haaland, for example, who obviously had that period where he was out injured. So people saying we don't need to replace Álvarez, it corrects to an extent, but logistically, there will need to be a conversation about how his minutes are replicated, how his starts are replicated, even if we don't have a conversation about output, because objectively, he played more than nearly any other player for City last season. As I say, more than bloody Edison in respect of accumulated minutes. I think it was Foden, Rodri, Walker were the only players who played more minutes than Julián Álvarez in the Premier League last season. So let's discuss how he was used last season, just for arguments. Don't worry about this, team. I'm just going to do this for argument's sake. What shall we do? What shall we do? Let's just pop Foden in there, and what else? No, let's do that. I know this isn't perfect, but it's going to annoy me if it's not perfect, though, isn't it? Because I'm a little freak like that. I tell you what we'll do. We will, yeah. We'll do false winger system. Get Kyle Walker on the pitch. Where's Walker? There he is. Yeah, that works, doesn't it? And then we'll have Cover. There. So we've got, there we go. That works. And then, I don't know who on the left, fucking Jeremy Doku. Why not? Okay. So there were two ways in which Álvarez was used last season. The obvious one is when Haaland was out, Álvarez would play up top, obviously, and then you'd have another midfielder in there, whatever. Now, so obviously that's the thing. And in terms of when he was a striker, what did Álvarez provide at striker? Well, obviously as a striker, he was a goal threat, great ball striker from outside the box. Maybe his most unique attribute, in addition to his off-ball movement, I suppose, was his movement. His pressing, his tenacity, his desire, his work rate. Was probably what he had over Haaland. I'm not saying Haaland's a bad presser by any means or is a lazy player, but clearly that's where Álvarez pips Haaland in that respect. So that's what he's bringing at striker. Now, what is Álvarez bringing in midfield? As after we've discussed what he brings, we'll then discuss how we can replace that. So what does he bring in midfield? In my opinion, not a lot. I've made it very known and clear that, again, not having to go Álvarez, I need to make this very clear. Let's reel it in for a second. Last season, I feel like a lot of people misinterpreted my thoughts on Álvarez. People thought I hated him. People thought he was a rubbish player. Not at all. But a midfielder, he is not. He's never going to be a great midfielder. He's never going to be a good 10. It's just not in his skill set. His first touch is poor. His 360 vision, i.e., knowing when and where there are threats, it is non-existent. His passing is poor. He's not really able to break lines. Liability is basically how I would describe it in respect to the midfield compared to what City are used to, and then we haven't even discussed the fucking conversation about when he was played even deeper alongside Rodri. Can you remember that, guys, against Chelsea? God, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen from a tactical perspective. I just couldn't believe really what I was seeing. So yeah, Álvarez ain't bringing much in midfield, to be honest. What he was also doing, and again, sounds like I'm having a go here, but I'm not. I'm actually having more a go at Pep here. Is it meant that there were often times where it meant that this system was foregone in the bigger games, for example, and Foden was shunted to the wings. Again, this isn't perfect, but I'm just using it for illustrative purposes. Where Foden was shunted to the wings for Álvarez to accommodate him, to shoehorn him in when Haaland was playing. Now, this made no sense to me, and it introduced a squad balance issue. So, in respect of, I don't want to sound harsh. What I'm basically trying to say is, I don't think that selling Álvarez is actually that much of a net negative, to be honest. That sounds really mean, because I do like Álvarez as a player, not a midfielder, as you guys know, but he's not going to play as a striker, is he? So let's, for argument's sake, say that Álvarez wasn't leaving this summer, right? Where do you guys think he's going to get the majority of his minutes? Because it ain't at striker, because Haaland exists. It was going to be another season where the majority of Álvarez's minutes are either on the bench or in midfield. And in my opinion, relative to our other midfielders, he's a liability and a net negative in respect to playing in the midfield. So I don't really know how much of an issue it's going to be, to be honest. And again, that sounds really mean and really harsh, but that's just my interpretation of it. So with all that said, Elder says the only thing we will miss is his pressing. Yeah, I am being harsh. Look, from the midfield, he did provide that ball striking attribute and that box crashing. I think, which is what Gundogan had. I think that's what Pep wanted. I think that's what Pep wanted Álvarez to do, but fundamentally, it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough benefit in doing that, and there were so many games last season, and I analysed those games, and I stood here, and I just got so angry because I just didn't know what I was watching. So Álvarez is now gone. Okay, we've discussed what he's. So I'm going to X him out. Sorry, Álvarez. There we go. He's gone. Okay, so this does, however, lead us into a situation where, logistically, City are low on bodies. In terms of his, let's talk about replacing Álvarez's minutes as striker and then his minutes in midfield. I think the striker conversation is probably more interesting, actually. Now, obviously, because Bigmas just asked who can replace Haaland if he gets injured, let's discuss that. Now, I think it would be a mistake if City replaced Álvarez directly. Now, what do I mean by that? In the same way, and this is something we discussed a few weeks ago, actually, when this whole Álvarez rumour started to, or suggestion started to gain some traction. In the same way that we all know, if you watch this channel, we all know City should not be looking to sign a Rodri backup. City should not be looking to sign a Rodri replacement or a pure 6 cover. Why? Because we all know that Rodri is going to play the vast majority of the games next season. He's going to play the vast majority of the minutes, bar some sort of debilitating injury. Okay? If you sign a 6 who can only play as a 6 and is a pure 6, like a Calvin Phillips, for example, you are going to be left in a situation like the Phillips situation where he simply does not play enough. And then by the time he gets into the team, he's not got any fitness, he's not got any sharpness about him. And he ends up playing like shit. Therefore, you can't actually rely on him. Therefore, you've got to commit and play Rodri every single time. Similar. It's not the exact situation, but a similar situation in terms of the striker situation. When we had two sort of strikers in Jesus and Aguero, Jesus left because he wasn't really happy with the minutes he was getting up top. We had 2 seasons where we didn't even play a striker, and Jesus was on the books. We played him out wide. And he left. Now history is repeating itself. Álvarez is too good to just be sat on the bench wallowing and doing nothing. So the issue for City is that we either, because there's two types of backup 9 that you could get. You could get a backup 9 who is happy to sit on the bench and only come in when Haaland's not playing. The issue there is, what quality striker is going to be willing to sit on the bench? What quality striker is genuinely going to be happy with doing that? The answer is probably, it doesn't exist. That player doesn't exist. Therefore, you're going to have to go back on quality in order to find a player who's happy sitting on the bench all the time. Alternatively, you get a player of that quality, like an Álvarez or whatever, who can fill in for Haaland, but he's not going to be happy sitting on the bench. He's just going to leave anyway. He's not going to be happy, etc. So the actual solution, as we discussed with the Rodri solution, which is what City did with the Fernandinho situation, is you get in a player, or you utilise a player who's comfortable playing in that position, but is also more than capable of playing somewhere else. So, as we've discussed many times, we shouldn't be looking for a Rodri cover, we should be looking for a Gundogan replacement. Because when Rodri was out, Gundogan replaced him. When Fernandinho was out, Gundogan replaced him. When Haaland is out, we need someone like that to do that. Now, logistically, what does that lead us to? In my opinion, when Haaland's out, and this is something that the chat has discussed before, the solution is to revert to something that we did a couple of years ago. Not for the most part, because again, outside of an injury, Haaland's going to start the majority of the games. This is something that we need to revert to what we did a few years ago when Haaland's not available. And that, ladies and gentlemen, as I just pop KDB in here just for argument's sake. Where's little Phil? Where's little Phil? There he is. I didn't know where he was because I was like, there's no way he's going to play on the right. Let's go bold and have Savio out there. Why not? Again, don't worry about this team, guys. That leads to a situation where false 9, City, returns. Now, I'm not a big fan of false 9 football because I'm a big fan of 9 football, because I think that the best football teams use a proper striker. I think the only reason Pep didn't use a striker for those 2 years was because he couldn't, because Aguero was out injured, and Jesus is not a striker. This, I think, however, works as a backup plan, again, when you need to give Haaland a rest or when Haaland is out injured. Now, why do I think that? Well, in the first instance, we already have a number of players who are able to do that. Like, literally, we've got players who did play that. Bernardo played that. Foden played that. De Bruyne played that. Grealish played that a couple years ago. They all play as the false 9, and guess what? We won the title doing that. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing to do. Is it ideal? Would I rather Haaland be available for every single minute? Yes. Is that realistic? No. There needs to be a backup situation. This means that this is also a huge beneficial situation for a player like an Oscar Bob, who I think is going to struggle this season to get central minutes. But I think he is a central player. I know he's played really well out on the right for City, and even on the left at times, so out wide. But he is clearly a more central player, like more of a 10 sort of player. He loves exploiting the pockets, for example. So I think this could be a perfect opportunity to give Oscar Bob some central experience, because he's going to struggle to get direct midfield experience when there's Foden and De Bruyne, you know, and Kovacic and Nunes and Lewis and all these names, etc., etc. You can even throw in McAtee and O'Reilly there. So I think that Bob is going to be a huge beneficiary there. I think it was Bailey who said that McAtee might be a huge beneficiary as well. Can he play false 9? I don't know, but that's another potential player who could get some minutes there. And what this does, from a tactical perspective, I think might make City a bit more solid defensively, and I'll get into what I mean by that. It will obviously make City less potent offensively, because you're going to be less good going forwards if Haaland's not on the pitch. But let's just discuss for a moment, why does the box midfield exist, guys? Why does the box midfield exist? By the way, we've got 170 people watching and only 60 likes. Guys, I want to get to 100, please. Come on, this is my job. You can help me out for free by leaving a like, supporting the channel, get this stream to more viewers. It does really help, and it is free, so please make sure to leave a like on the video. If you're enjoying the content and you like me, if you don't like me, don't like the content, don't leave a like, because that'd be weird. But you're watching, so I'm assuming you do, so please leave a like. Thank you guys so much for that. This stream is sponsored by Fanta Lemon, by the way, guys. Don't forget, get your Fanta Lemon at your local Fanta store. Darcy, thank you. Sorry, Darcy, I didn't realize I was saying super chat. Thank you for that. I swear, if we don't buy a midfielder yet, Darcy, don't worry, we'll talk about that. Thank you so much for your super chats. Right, yeah, so why does this exist, lads? Why do we think that exists for City? Why is Pep obsessed with the notion of a box midfield? I'll tell you why. That's a rhetorical question. That's a rhetorical question. I'll tell you why. I've just realised that logistically this team doesn't work because you need Kyle Walker in there for the midfield I've made, or Gvardiol actually. Oh, we'll just do that. Right. Why does this exist? The reason is because we are living in a world where midfield superiority, in general, at the high level and for the most part, equates to success. Oh, Farah said control. Well done. Yes, it's a little bit more than that, but it is to do with control. Absolutely. It is also to do with, as I say, numerical superiority. The history of football. 4-4-2, British, steel, King, Vieira, Gilberto Silva, Keane, Scholes, etc. In sort of like the 90s, early 2000s. That was like the bedrock of English football. You had a midfield too, okay? Jose Mourinho comes along with his, wild Portuguese ways and goes, oh, what about 4-3-3? Mm-hmm. 3 guys is a bigger number than 2. And Mourinho was in that 04-05 season. If you guys remember that, he was basically, and Mourinho's said this as well. Like he's like said after the fact, he was basically able to win that title, obviously because he was a brilliant manager at the time and he had brilliant players. But he said the main reason why he was able to just dominate the majority of games is because he was just coming up against midfield duos consistently. So his midfield 3 of Makelele, Lampard and whoever it would have been, Johnson or whoever it was at the time, were just able to dominate by virtue of having greater numbers. 2 is bigger than 3. And what number is bigger than 3, guys? 4. 4 is bigger than 3. This is the latest evolution in the one-upmanship. It's only a matter of time, guys, before we go to a 6-man midfield. No. Right, yeah. So why did Pep... So Pep is happy with the idea of 4 in the middle. Now, when City had a false 9 situation, it wasn't exactly this, obviously, but basically, the striker would drop in and help create that numerical superiority. So you were dropping a player from the front line into the middle to get that midfield superiority. But with Haaland, you don't want to do that, because as City found that season, when, if we had like Oscar Bob, for example, there was no one like just attacking the box. City were creating loads of stuff and loads of great chances. It was Harry Kane syndrome, though. Harry Kane at the Euro syndrome. No one was attacking those balls. Don't attack my balls, guys. So, you don't want Haaland dropping in. Now, he's got really good link-up play, but the whole point of Haaland is you want him literally in the fucking box, right? So, that meant he couldn't drop back. Therefore, Pep was like, right, well, in order to remedy that, we're going to bring, instead of bringing a striker to the middle, we're going to bring a defender. I know it's not a defender, but it's for illustration. A defender to the middle. That's what Stones was. That's what even like a Walker and Gvardiol have been. Now, if you are playing a false 9, you don't necessarily... It stands to reason if we just like follow this through. So if I just drops and pop Stones there for a second, it stands to reason that in theory... Oh, my OCD. You don't really need to commit a defender to the midfield box as much as you once did. Because obviously, your striker is now helping out with that midfield superiority. So I actually think that there is a world where City, again, might be less potent going forwards, but this actually might be a blessing in disguise from a rest defence and overall defensive structure perspective. Maybe. That's not a guarantee. I've just made a conclusion there, but it stands to reason that if you aren't committing a defender to the midfield and you're committing a forward player to the midfield, you're obviously going to get less impetus going forwards. But surely, rest defense-wise, City should, in theory, be more solid defensively. So there are positives and negatives to this style of play. And again, it's important to bear in mind this is a plan B. A plan B. Yes, in the main, we still want Haaland to be starting, but he can't play every single minute of every single game of every single competition. It gives City a different dimension from a possession perspective, because you might see a more fluid style of football if you've got basically a midfielder getting involved in the forward play. I was going to say something really wise then. What was it? Oh, bastards! What was I going to say? Yes, attacking patterns of play. And this is where I think that it's probably, because if you recall the last stream, we discussed what's the likelihood of Doku and Savio and Haaland all starting, again, just doing this as illustration, all starting at the same... What are the chances we actually see this front 5? I think it's incredibly unlikely. I think it's really unlikely because you've got 5 vertical players there. You've got players who emphasise carrying first, for example. Eden has what's the word? Preempted what I was going to say. Yes, because I'm not going to use I could use De Bruyne, but just for argument's sake, we use Bob here. Because if you play more of a midfielder here, or a wide player here, who's more comfortable dropping deep and going there, it means that surely, again, there is more license to rely on your wide players just making these terrifying runs and linking up. So I'm seeing a world where, Bob or whoever picks it up, plays it out to a Foden or a De Bruyne, and then whip it, running behind to a Savio, probably more likely to a Savio, but to a Doku as well. So I think that in that situation, City could rely more so on their wide players. And again, I'm looking more so at Savio for this because, as we discussed in my Savio analysis video, he is a long-paced player. He's someone who wants to make those runs in behind the fullback and stretch the opposition defence. As Eden says, you could, and this is the beauty of this Plan B, is that it doesn't have to be Bob. You could have De Bruyne as a false nine and Bob up there. Now, I personally don't want that. I will say that much, even though it could work. De Bruyne's small space work is declining. I still think that it's better if we operate him deeper. I also don't want Foden to play there because we can't have another season of Foden not being used properly in his best position. I don't want that. I think maybe the best people to be in this role for me would be an Oscar Bob, who's unbelievable in those smaller spaces, and his link-up play and dribbling work rate is fantastic. I think that could be really nice, and it allows Foden and De Bruyne, our best passers of the ball, to do that. I think that Bernardo is one who, for me, I struggled with where was Bernardo going to be involved this season for the most part, because I'm looking at him out wide, and I think his right-wing work is waning. I don't really want to see him out there. I'd rather a Savio, a Bob, a Doku play there. And then looking in the midfield. And again, I'm looking at, I don't really want to play Bernardo over Foden and De Bruyne, for example. So I was having a bit of a crisis of where do I want Bernardo to play? But this could be a really good solution because Bernardo can play there as well. Ibrahim says McAtee's good in small spaces. I totally agree. Maybe he could sometimes fill in as a false nine. Jack Grealish played there in the 21-22 season as a false nine, so an opportunity for him to thrive there as well. But I actually think, now this is a bit counterintuitive maybe, but I actually think that I'd like to see Savio tried there as well, in which case maybe you'd have Doku and Grealish there. Savio does have experience playing as a 10, which isn't something I really discussed in my analysis video, just because I didn't even contemplate the idea of him playing in midfield. I still don't think he will play in 10, but because he has that central experience, and because, again, even when he starts on the right, he loves to drift in centrally, and because his small space work is so good, and his first touch and general technique is so good, I think it might be really fun to see Savio played in that false nine area as well. That would obviously mean you would lose his running from the wings, but again, it's just, the point I'm trying to illustrate is options. City have so many options in this Plan B situation. So I am actually not too down on the idea of having to go back to a false nine situation for some games. Again, if Haaland's available and fits, and it's not a dead game, you play Haaland. But this is a great opportunity for Bob, McAtee, Grealish, Savio, etc., to maybe get some more central minutes in that false nine situation. And again, you've got so many of these players who are used to playing that style of play. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to go back to a false nine situation when Haaland's not available. Obviously, in the most part, you still want Haaland available. Is there anything else that I wanted to... Yes, there was something else. I didn't watch preseason, but someone told me, I think it was Musty, someone told me that even Lewis had been trialled up top in false nine. No idea how realistic that is, but that could be really interesting. Gvardiol false nine. I reckon Gvardiol could do it, to be fair. Maybe there's even a world where Lewis gets some minutes there, because again, we talk about these small space operators. Again, Lewis is really technically gifted and good in those areas. So from an out of possession perspective, I don't know how it would work. It probably wouldn't. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are options and circumstances where City can still potentially flourish. So that's Alvarez's we've talked a lot about that, goodness me. So that's Alvarez's striker minutes replaced. You just replace him by getting other players who need minutes. Maybe even Mateus Nunes. Could he do it? Probably not, but whatever. Maybe he'll get some pity minutes. I don't know. So that's how you replace that, because Bob's minutes need to be upped. Bob only had like 300 minutes last season. It's pretty obvious his minutes are going to skyrocket. Whether they're going to touch 2,000, I doubt it. But you'd imagine it's going to be a lot more than 300, for example. I'd expect that Bob alone would probably be able to deal with all of Alvarez's striker minutes from last season, because again, he didn't play at striker for the most part. It's more so in the middle. So how do we replace Alvarez's midfield minutes? Because he played the majority of last season in midfield. Well, because, again, I'll repeat, Alvarez played like 2,500 minutes last season. more than the majority of our players. Oh my god, I've just fucking punched my printer. Jesus Christ, apologies there. This guy, I don't know if you know him, lads. I don't know if you've heard of this geezer. He's pretty good in midfield. De Bruyne only played half the season. I think he started 15 games last season. He obviously missed half of it due to injury. Now, is De Bruyne going to play every single minute of every single game? No, because his body's aging, he's becoming more injury prone, he will need to be managed. But he's obviously going to play more than half the season next season, bar another injury. So, excluding an injury, which I can't really legislate for, because if an injury happens, then an injury happens. I can't really, directly legislate for it. One assumes that his minutes are going to go up a lot, because I'll repeat, he only featured in half the season, he started 15 games. I'm sure we can all agree he's going to start more like, 25 games or something. So that's a lot of minutes. He won't play all 90 minutes, but that's nearly 1,000 minutes already from that 2,500 which we're trying to take away from Álvarez. Probably more like 2,000 if we're taking off his striker minutes. So that's a large proportion of it. Another beneficiary of Álvarez leaving is the other midfielder, Phil Foden. Despite Phil Foden playing the majority of last season in the middle, there were still, annoyingly, some games where he was shunted out to the left or shunted out to the right, or not even as a false winger, just fucking... what's it? There's been an Álvarez development. Oh, don't tell me he's actually not leaving and this whole stream is redundant. But Toby, what's going on? Foden, I would assume, will not be playing out wide at all next season, or shouldn't be anyway. He shouldn't be anyway. So again, those minutes where Foden was out wide, you can attribute, which was, I think, was about 25% of Foden's minutes last season. That gets attributed to Phil Foden in the midfield. Check Discord, for God's sake. Right, what's going on? There's been an update in the Álvarez situation, has there? Talks between Atletico Madrid and Julián Álvarez on verge of breaking down. Oh, for God's sake. Right. Well, that's a massive L. Okay. Well, this whole stream might be redundant then. But again, I'll just assume that he is leaving. Right. Apparently, Álvarez might not be leaving now, going to the Athletic and David Ornstein. That's really that's really annoying because this whole stream is now irrelevant. But let's continue and just assume that is going to be resolved, shall we? Because to be fair, this is still relevant because let's all be honest, Álvarez ain't going to be here at the end of next season. So this stream is still relevant if he's leaving this summer or the next. So no, it's fine. We continue. We continue. What was I saying? Yes. So Foden wide. Sorry, his wide minutes. Oh, was it a joke? Thank you, Toby. I appreciate you ruining the momentum of the stream. Thank you for that, Toby. I really appreciate that. I'm sure all the viewers appreciate that too. So Foden's minutes out wide are going to be replaced by Doku out wide, because Doku didn't play that many minutes relative to the quality he is, to be honest. I think obviously that was his first season. I imagine Doku's minutes are going to go up. Grealish's minutes, again, he only started like 10 games last season. I expect his minutes to go up. That's where Foden's wide minutes get replaced. And again, him playing more in the middle gets rid of Álvarez's midfield minutes. So this now leads us to the conversation of, so who do City sign to replace Álvarez? And we've basically reached the conclusion that we don't need to replace him directly. We have the players who are able to play in his absence when he plays at striker, re the false nine situation. We already had the players who were able to take up his midfield minutes because we have actual midfielders. For me, we don't actually need to replace Álvarez in terms of getting another 9. What we do need to do, however, is have a look at the bodies on the pitch here. Have a look at the numbers here. City's squad, which was already small, has gotten smaller. How many players are here, actually? Let's count them up. Do we have 11? Yes, we do. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 20. Is that it? That can't be right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Right, okay, yeah, wow, okay. So it's actually smaller than I thought. Sorry, Alexandra says the GA is missing. Yeah, we didn't discuss that. We'll briefly talk about that now. Yeah, how do you replace Álvarez's output, his goals and assists? Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that Álvarez's season is a bit, for some, Álvarez has a lot of defenders, let's put it that way, who don't like to accept that he's not a midfielder and wasn't actually that good last season. Álvarez underperformed on his XG and overperformed on his expected assists, which is a bad thing because it means his chance creation wasn't actually that good. So in terms of his goals, it shouldn't be that hard to replace because Haaland also heavily underperformed on his XG last season, which is something he's never done since joining Salzburg. Does anyone think that Haaland is going to do that again? I don't think so. So immediately, I think that's probably the majority of Álvarez's goals. But you've also got to look at someone like Doku, who, in my opinion, is going to have a much better season from an output perspective. We've also brought in Savio, who last season got 10 goals and 10 assists in the league in La Liga last season, and like the fourth most expected assists in La Liga last season. So his underlying numbers were also good. So in terms of output, I don't think it's hard to replace. Oscar Bob coming in as well. I think that he's a player who's going to get a decent amount of assists and maybe goals as well. So I actually don't think... I know that... How many did you get? Was it like... I don't know how many goals and assists it was last season. Was it like 30 odd or something like that in all comps maybe? Or was that just the league? I don't know. For me, it's not going to be hard to replace, to be honest. I don't really see that as a problem. And also you've got to consider that City don't necessarily have to directly replace output. You could score less goals but still win the league, so it's not really as clear cut as that. But the point is that he's the tools are there in the squad for him to be replaced already. But again, this leads us to a situation of Calvin Calvin's missing. Okay, guys. I've not got Cancelo in the squad, and I've not got Calvin Phillips in the squad because I personally do not consider them senior players because I consider them dead weight, and I consider they are going to be leaving. That's the thing. These are the players and I'm not going to Scott Carter because he's a fucking third choice keeper. These are what I consider the senior players of the team. And I am including Oscar Bob and Rico Lewis in there, by the way. There are 20 players. People are talking about O'Reilly and McAtee, and that's absolutely fine. But does anyone really think that these players are going to get significant minutes? Like, does anyone think that I mean, McAtee might. Is McAtee going to play more this season than Bob did last, for example? Is O'Reilly? I'd be very surprised if they got 1,000 minutes collectively between the two across the season. I'd be staggered if that was the case. So I personally don't consider them senior players, to be honest, for the purposes of this discussion. 20 realistic senior bodies is too little. This is not enough, clearly. So City do need to sign a player, someone. Now, as we've discussed for like however many, I feel like a year now. In fact, it probably is a year. Yeah, no, when did Gundogan leave? Probably a year ago now. What position do City need? We all know. It is that 8-6 hybrid. It is the Gundogan replacement. It is someone who can work alongside Rodri, work ahead of Rodri, and work instead of Rodri. I don't know why I said work. Play instead of, alongside, and in front of Rodri. That is who City must sign now. That is the body to complete this squad. That is what must happen. If that doesn't happen, I don't think we win the league, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll come second. We all know who the player is. It's Bruno Guimaraes. It's a João Neves who's gone to PSG. It's an Amadou Onana who's gone to Aston Villa. I saw a Near Post on Twitter. Shout out Near Post. Great football account. Definitely go follow him if you can. Suggested Leverkusen's Palacios. I've not watched enough of Leverkusen to make an assessment on him, but I trust Near Post's judgment. So maybe him as well. But the point is someone... I don't need to provide you with a name. Someone of that profile and quality is what City need. We need that from a squad balance perspective. We need that from purely a numbers perspective. Because I'll repeat, this is a small squad. There's 20 players there. That is tiny. tiny. Even if you include the babies, McAtee and O'Reilly, it's still tiny. Like realistically, from a senior perspective. So City must bring in that body. And that body, again, not only covers Rodri, can play alongside Rodri, but can also take on some of those midfield minutes that Álvarez had. But obviously better. So that is my... That's my assessment on the Álvarez situation. How can City replace him? The conclusion is that we don't necessarily need to, but we do need another body in there somewhere. Otherwise, we're just not going to have. Calvin's not included in the senior team, Musty. Come on, we all know he's going to go. I'm not interested in the centre back redemption arc, to be honest. We've got Ake and Diaz and Akanji and Gvardiol and Stones. Bar injuries, I want to see him anywhere on the pitch, to be honest. So yeah, that's what we need. Brunnergy is trash. Can't hold the ball under pressure. Is the most dispossessed midfielder in the Premier League. Well, he's a player who always tries to do things, if that's what you mean. But again, that's players who try to do stuff will lose the ball more. So I don't really think that's a fair assessment. But yeah, so that's the situation, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed that so far. We're going to go back over there. We're going to go sit down. I think we've exhausted the tactical board. We're going to redirect from LB. Shout out LB, one absolute boy. Where does Nunes fit? Asks Fuscan. I don't know. We can briefly talk about Nunes if you want. Here's the rub, lads. Here is the rub. Central players. Central. Probably more so central. Central. I'm not even going to say McAtee and O'Reilly. Central. And Lewis, obviously, central. Right, guys. Look at all these central players. And you tell me where you think Nunes plays in the centre. Who are you starting him over? So you're obviously not starting him over Rodri. If we're doing a defender situation, you obviously can't start him over Stones or Gvardiol because they need to do that. Alternatively, you need a Kovacic alongside Rodri, and Nunes ain't. So that's the first potential. Can Nunes learn how to play alongside Rodri in a deeper position? I don't think that's necessarily his strength. I'm going to say no, so therefore I don't think he can play there either. So in my opinion, these are the two positions he could play in from a central perspective. This is Nunes I'm talking about now. Does anyone want to play Nunes over Foden? Does anyone want to play Nunes over De Bruyne? Does anyone want to play Nunes over Bob? Does anyone want to play Nunes over Lewis? Does anyone want to play Nunes over Bernardo Silva? Does anyone want to play Nunes over McAtee at this point? Maybe. And maybe that's going too far. In my opinion, I don't think that he's going to play in the middle extensively this season. Therefore, in my view, he needs to reinvent himself. He played really well out wide against Bournemouth, for example. And I think that there is a world where he could become like an auxiliary fullback. If we think of the Kyle Walker role last season, where he started at... There's so many players on the pitch here. If we think of the Kyle Walker role last season, where Walker started at right back, but then pushed out to right wing. I've just said how I was impressed with Nunes when he played out wide. There were two games, weren't there? One was Bournemouth. Was it Luton? It was only Luton, but still, you know, he played well, in fairness to him. That might be a thing. Could he become a right back who progresses up to right wing to help form that box midfield? Maybe. I don't know. I personally struggle to see where he's going to play centrally. Because again, I'm not willing to risk Rico Lewis's development, nor am I willing to risk Oscar Bob's development for Matheus Nunes. Tell me in the chat, who's been better in a City shirt? Nunes or Lewis? Nunes or Bob? It's the latter. Bob and Lewis have been better than Nunes in a City shirt. I'd even say in a Wolves shirt. So why should I stunt the development of Rico Lewis, who's like 2 years old, and Oscar Bob, who's also a young player, for Matheus Nunes? I don't think I want to do that personally. So I think that if he wants to have a City future, he's going to have to reinvent himself as a different player. Again, whether that's out wide, whether that's learning a different role. I'm also willing to be proven wrong if he improves massively. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but outside of that, I struggle because again, if you're playing him in midfield, you are stunting the development of Lewis or Bob or whoever in there. And I don't think the Nunes is worth it. This isn't like when we had Foden, an academy player, and you weren't playing him because there was David Silva and De Bruyne and Gundogan and Bernardo Silva ahead of him. Rico Lewis and Oscar Bob are not coming up against those players. It's still De Bruyne, but you see what I mean? It's Nunes. Nunes is not De Bruyne, David Silva, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva. To me, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, guys, that is the Julián Álvarez. If you've just joined from the LB show, thank you so much to LB for doing the raid. Sadly, you've missed all our discussion on the tactical situation, Julián Álvarez, and how City can replace him tactically, etc. I'd recommend going back in the stream maybe after this one ends if you would like to do that. But for now, I'm going to go back and sit over there. We're gonna have it. I don't know what the time is. How are we doing for time? It's only been an hour, to be fair. We're going to go back over to my chair. We're going to have a chat about Álvarez and just a general Q&A, because that's what Touchline Talk is. I'll be back on Thursday, 1 p.m, by the way. I'm going to go over there now. Yeah, you see that? You see that? That chair? Yeah, I'm going to go back over there. Win a memento. Boom. There we go. Look at that. Look at that class setup, guys. Anyway, look at all this fucking blue in my room. Christ, what a fanboy I am. Excuse me. If you just joined, please leave a like. If you haven't just joined, please leave a like. Because it's free, and I've asked you to do it. We've got over 250 people watching, which is lovely. Thank you so much, LB, for that. Let's get to 200 likes. Come on, lads. Get it up here. Get it up here. So, yeah. That's the Álvarez situation. I don't think we need to replace him directly, but we do need to replace him with a body. Thankfully, that situation has not changed. Oh, this is an analogy I thought of the other day. Last season, City had a massive hole in their jumper. Okay. Yes, I'm using jumper the jumper is an analogy for City's squad balance. Okay, City had a massive hole in their jumper caused by a moth or whatever called Gundogan. The moth is Gundogan, and he was on the jumper and he's left. City have a hole in their jumper. Now that hole can be filled quite easily. Now Álvarez leaving does not create a new hole in the jumper. What it does is it widens the currently existing hole in the jumper. Okay? Now, would you rather have two holes in your jumper or one slightly bigger hole? The point I'm trying to make is that a jumper's a terrible analogy. I should use like a pothole or something. The point is that City can just pour more concrete into the same hole rather than have to go into two different holes. This signing that we're talking about, i.e. the Bruno Guimaraes player, is the solution for both holes, i.e. the same hole. That's what I'm trying to say there. Sorry if that analogy was terrible, but hopefully you guys understood what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so that's the situation. If you guys got any questions on anything, we can go into the Q&A section of the stream where we have conversations. Again, shout out to Amar and Darcy for your super chats. If you would like to become a channel member, guys, for £3 a month, the link is in the pinned comment, or you can click the join button. I'd like to have 3 holes in my jumper. How would I get in the West? Shut up. There we go. Yes, see, he agrees with my jumper analogy. We love to see it. B says, prediction, City will sign a DM and a strike before the transfer window ends. I'd be staggered if that happened, mate. Again, I think we're going to sign one player, and that one player should be the 6'8 hybrid. Don't give me a striker. Bendiv, what the hell? That's outrageous. How could you? How could you? Hello, mate. What are your thoughts on City signing right back like Simicon? That's my boy. And use Cova as a 6 when Rodri needs a rest. I think it's better. What are your thoughts if it were to happen? So I've seen a lot of people suggest that we don't need a 6-8 hybrid because Kovacic is there. Now, no disrespect to Kovacic, but memories must be short because I'm not talking about you, by the way, Go. I'm talking about other people who are more aggressive in that respect. Did people forget the games where Rodri was absent last season and we played like a decent opponent, like the Villa game, the Wolves game, the Arsenal game? What's the common theme there? We lost them all. Kovacic cannot play as a lone 6. He's not that guy. He can play well alongside Rodri. He can play decently well ahead of Rodri. Not great, but he can play well ahead of him. He cannot play well instead of him. That's what history tells us anyway. So I'm not having that Kovacic is the Gundogan replacement because he can't do that. He can't do that role that well enough. So I like the idea of bringing in a right back because Walker's probably going to leave at the end of the next season. Simicon would be my player of choice. But we do need to bring in that player. We do need to bring in someone who can play again. It's a trifactor. You need to play alongside, ahead of, and instead of Rodri. If you can satisfy all 3 of those requirements, well, you're in. We'll give you the contract, yeah? Sort it out. Hello, MCFC. Who's your ideal replacement for Álvarez and how bad of an idea is it to get João Felix? For me, it's a terrible idea to get João Felix. We've discussed the whole body situation, the fact that we don't need a direct replacement, but also, like, João Felix, I mean, it wasn't even the player. For me, it was the arrangement of that deal, because we've got, like, around £80 million for Álvarez now, haven't we? Now, if Atletico were going to say, we'll give you £60 million and a loan of Felix, that means they are placing £20 million on the privilege to have Felix on loan for a season, which to me is mental. So the wording of that deal, the structure of that deal rather, was actually embarrassing if that's what happened. What we have now, as we discussed at the top of the stream, €95 million, that's around how much I value him at. I think that's a fair amount. So yeah, for me, we don't actually need to sign a direct replacement. We need to sign this midfielder we've been discussing. Bad idea to get Felix for me. Question: Haaland can't play every game. How is City set up in those games? So Ashen, I think he may have just joined, but we did discuss for like an hour. I feel like what happened when Haaland's not playing. We concluded that the false 9 system is a brilliant plan B. It means Bob gets more central minutes, means that Savio can even maybe play there as well. Alternatively, if you've got Bob in the middle, you can, or whoever in the middle, it means you've got one less vertical player in the striker position, means you can probably play 2 more aggressive wingers, i.e. Doku Savio, and makes that makes that more realistic. I think that Savio would be a huge beneficiary of that. I think it was Eden who suggested that, false 9, flicks it to De Bruyne. De Bruyne, first time ball into a Savio run in behind the fullback. Bam. Cash money. I'm not saying I prefer false 9 football, but we did score more goals the season before we signed Haaland in the Prem. Then when we broke the Prem record false 9s. Exactly, Miles. Yeah. Now, I'm not, again, I'll repeat. 9 football is superior to false 9 football. If you had to associate false 9 football with any manager, you'd probably say Pep. And what did Pep Guardiola do after playing false 9 for 2 seasons? He got out and signed the most 9-9 the sport has ever created, maybe. He clearly does not want to play false 9 football like long term. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed Haaland. He would have signed someone like a João Felix or whoever. He clearly sees the value in having someone who can finish up top. So yeah, I totally agree. It's a good alternative, not a bad alternative. Maybe even better because it means that teams are sort of now questioning, well, they actually might not play Haaland, in which case we can't practice for that. We've now got to prepare for a situation where there's all these rotations going on in the forward line in the midfield. So it's a perfect situation. Bruno Skymo, yeah, totally agree. It's looking unlikely we're going to get him, which is a massive shame because he literally solves in my opinion, he solves every single problem City have. And if we signed him, I would be so confident in saying we would win the Premier League title. So uber confident. I get my nuts out on the desk and say, yeah, it's going to happen. Until that happens, though, I'm going to say we aren't going to win it, to be honest. Exactly, Heartthrob. Exactly. That's the one, mate. Rico's a good player, but Nunes is an athlete, has a higher ceiling. I don't know how you assess he's got a higher ceiling, though, personally. I'd argue Lewis has got the higher ceiling. Foden is great at false nine, but for me, I don't want another season where he's being thrown around the pitch and he doesn't play as much as he should in the midfield. I appreciate he's great at false nine, but I'd rather that those minutes be given to someone like Oscar Bob, for example, and we play Foden in his actual position. That's what I'd like. That's a thing. But again, Pep, that doesn't work because Bruno is tasked with creating stuff in more advanced areas. Like, if you watch my analysis of him, he attempts. I think he's completed the second most through balls of any player in the Premier League. I think he's only behind it's either Fernandes or Ødegaard. You don't get to those numbers by not getting dispossessed or giving away the ball. The Red Devil says, is it possible to go for Kimmich right now? We shouldn't go for Kimmich. In my opinion, that's a mistake. If you want to play him as a right back, that's absolutely fine and lovely. Midfielder, no. We should run away from that as a concept. That would be a bad signing if we were going to play him as a midfielder. Bad signing, in my opinion. What do you believe is the most realistic 6-8 Harry for City to get in this transfer window? No, I actually don't know. We discussed this. I was looking at Bruno. I was looking at João Neves. I was looking at Amadou Onana. They were my three, to be honest. Two of them have gone, and one might not happen. I discussed earlier, or I mentioned earlier, that Nearpost, who's a great account on Twitter, did a really good article on Bruno Guimaraes potential replacements. And one of the names he suggested was, well, in addition to Adam Wharton, I know you guys are saying Wharton, he suggested Leverkusen's Palacios. Don't know enough about him, but he suggested him. I trust Nearpost's judgment. Maybe that'll be one. From a player who I do know more about, Wharton would be very interesting, but he's so young. It seems like, it doesn't, just from a him perspective, it doesn't seem like a smart move for Wharton, because I feel like he's at a stage in his development where he needs to be playing week in, week out. And I'd be very surprised if that happened at City. So for his sake, for City's perspective, Wharton would be brilliant. For his sake, maybe less so. So that's my conclusion on Wharton. Blue Cheese says, buy Palmer from Chelsea. How is that going to help helping out Rodri? When Haaland is not fit, playing another striker at top is the most sensible thing to do. That's why I said targeting another striker. But how do you know we're targeting another striker? And also, I would disagree. I'd disagree. It's not. It doesn't make sense, because we saw with Jesus and we saw with Julián Álvarez that they've left. They don't get enough minutes at striker. It's like Calvin Phillips. He's not going to get enough minutes at 6. For me, it makes more sense to get a player who can play there, but doesn't have to play there. And that's what. What? Hello, Connor. It's the first time I've ever done it, to be honest, Connor. I've no idea, mate. It's the first time I've ever done it. No idea if people are even watching on Twitter, but I've done it. How do I find out who's watching on Twitter? How do I find out? We've got... Is there 1,000 people watching on Twitter? You little freaks. Come over to the YouTube, guys. Come on now. Come over to the YouTube. I don't get any money on Twitter, basically. Cards on the table, lads. I don't get any money from Twitter viewers. Come over to the YouTube. The link is in my Twitter page. Well, leave a like on the post, obviously. That's great. It's lovely there's over 1,000 of you watching, but I don't get any money from that. So come over here, please, and give me that ad revenue. Thank you very much. Guys, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest. How do you feel about selling Hamilton? Hamilton, I'm happy for it. We do have a big Borough fan in the Discord server, so I will be learning about his development as the season goes on. The sad reality is he was never going to make it at City. How old was he? Was he 22 or so? And he'd never really played for City. I know he had that big injury, but it's a good move for him. I hope it works out. I hope he smashes it. We do have a buyback, in fairness, so if it does work out, it works out. I know. I don't understand. I just can't understand this, because my conclusion was, because as I'm aware, there was no genuine interest in in Neves from a City perspective. There was no genuine, true interest. It was just, you know, rumours and analysts suggesting he would be perfect. And I agreed that he would be my second choice behind Bruno. I think he would complement Rodri perfectly. And I assumed the reason why City weren't interested was because, well, the release clause was over 100 million quid. You don't want to spend that much money on a relatively inexperienced player, fine. PSG are getting him for like a packet of crisps. I don't understand. How has he gone for so cheap? He's not even gone for the release. Yeah, for me that's a massive. For me that's a mistake. If we don't sign the player I think we should sign, that is a mistake in my opinion. I don't get it. Simeon says Palacios will complement Roger perfectly. Well, there you go, guys. Choo choo. Let's get on board the near post Palacios train. Big up. Again, if you're watching on Twitter, go follow near post on Twitter because he's class. He's very good. You know my shout, Ibrahim. It's Bruno G. That's gnarly, shush. Grealish, what is going on? Grealish is 6'8" hybrid. What is happening? What is happening? It was going in the Champions League, to be fair. Yeah, Louis, you're not wrong, mate. Just go for Trevor to walk in the starting line. But isn't he a 10? Isn't he more of a 10? Yeah, I agree. I think that O'Reilly's not going to get nearly as many minutes as people who've watched the preseason games think. I don't even know how many. It would surely be like less than 5 starts in the league. I'd be very surprised if he got significant minutes. That's amazing, Lou. I hope you enjoy it, mate. Yes, there we go, Ginger Wig. That's my boy. That's my boy. See, everyone on the Twitter should do what if you like Ginger Wig, and you bloody should, because he's a great guy. Oh, I didn't tell you, mate. The other day, I went round to my nana's. Quick story, if you know this, if you watch my Colin Bell documentary, Ginger. My nan used to work for Colin Bell. She's got one of your coasters. I didn't even realise. I saw. I put my Pepsi Max down, and on Pep's face, I was like, oh, on a Haaland's face it was. I was like, oh, I know who made that. That was class. Why did Neves leave? I don't know, mate. Oh no, why didn't he come to us? Shout out to Ligue 1. Like, Ligue 1 gets a lot of disrespect from a development perspective, but the reality, sorry, from a club signing players from Ligue 1, the reality is that the talent pool in Ligue 1 is like it's one of the best in Europe. So it's not a bad thing to go to Ligue 1, to be honest, with you guys. Look at there's so many class players who've come from that league. Shout out Jeremy. Here's a 10. Yeah, there you go. I don't know enough about Echeberry, but you'd imagine that he'd be more potentially in line when De Bruyne leaves, for example. Shut up, Musty. We replace Álvarez. Simple. Pep said they'll sign replacements if players leave. But again, a replacement doesn't necessarily mean a direct positional replacement. I'll say it again. It's a mistake if we sign a 9. IMO. Grealish at what are you guys on? Grealish at 6. Are you guys all right? Hello. We're changing it. Yeah, but he's such a all-phase midfielder. He'd be great for any system. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about that, mate. Do you think Rice is going to be the Gundogan replacement? Yeah, I do, Miles. I do. I think that had we signed Rice, I think what we would have seen is basically last season's system. So Walker's still pushing up for a lot of it. But I think that we would have seen like Rice instead of Kovacic. I think that the rest defense would have been if Stones is injured, Akanji, Diaz, Gvardiol, and then ahead of them, Rodri and Rice. That 3-2. Now that is like terrifying. Like you are literally not getting past that from like a counter-attacking perspective. Rice would have been the perfect Rodri partner. Because if you think about what are Rodri's biggest weaknesses, IMO, it is the transition defending, and it is probably like the direct duel winning as well. What are Rice's best attributes in IMO? It is direct duel winning, and it is transitional defending. So they cover each other's, and what, you know, Rice's biggest weaknesses, it's receiving the ball under pressure on the half turn, you know, back facing, you know, back to play, etc., and progressing the ball, breaking lines, etc. What's Rodri's strengths? All of that and more. So it would have been the perfect partnership. So it's a massive shame we didn't get him. I think we would have been unstoppable had we got him. So yeah, I'm very upset we didn't sign him, to be honest. I was very excited at the prospect of signing him. Very upset we didn't. But we can try to recreate that. Can I meet you at the Etihad? Probably not, Louis, mate. You look quite young, and yeah, no, that seems a bit dodgy, to be honest, mate. Why am I wearing red? Oh, it's not. It sort of is red, to be fair. It's a washed out colour. You get me? Yeah, of course. Thought signing a right wing and making Bob the Álvarez replacement. We signed a right wing. We signed Savio. And again, I think Bob will, as we discussed earlier, Bob will be used a lot in the false nine next season, I think, when Haaland's out. Trent in midfield next season, says Tech Freak. What for Liverpool? I don't know enough about how Slot plays. I'm going to wait to see what happens there. I would suspect that I don't know what I suspect, to be honest. I don't like Trent. No, not Trent in midfield out and out anyway. I don't like Trent in midfielder. He's not a midfielder. How do you see the role of Lewis? Asks EDL. I actually don't know still. He sees himself as a midfielder. I see him as a midfielder. I don't think he's got the physicality to necessarily be a right back. I think his future is more as an 8. It's so tricky to break into that, though, in this City side. Foden's only been able to break into the midfield. Rice, no, and Gundo. No, of course Gundogan's better, but it's about profiles. It's about complementing your players. That's what it is. The club should go and heavily invest in a Walker replacement and groom him until he's with us. I'd imagine that might be next season, potentially. Oh, for City, I mean, Trent at City would be lovely. Can you imagine Trent in the Walker role last season? Ooh, that would have been cash money, in fairness. And I actually would have liked that more so. And I'm not a fan of pushing defenders that far up, but there we go. Love that from you, Born Mash. Really appreciate it. We've got over 250 people watching. Can we please get on the YouTube? Can we please get to 200 likes, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you very much. I'll be a happy boy if we get to that. I will be a happy boy if we get to that. This has been a very positive stream, I feel like, in terms of the discussions that we've had, the conclusions that we have reached. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed as well. Is there anything else specific? Big up, Nick. Is there anything else specific that we would like to discuss today? I will be back on Thursday at 1 on the YouTube. I will be live on Twitch tonight for doing some gaming. If you want to have a more chilled out stream with us tonight, it's just LNobbins on Twitch. MCFC Protocol says we will play 3-3-3-1 this season. Maybe, mate, maybe. We'll have to see what we see. Because he does always change it. Side note, I'm going to have a bit of a rant here. There are a lot of idiots in the world. Those again, massive deviation and pivot here. Those people at like the Euros who are saying stuff like, you know, if a City player underperformed in a game and then they jump on the bandwagon of X player can't play well outside of Pep's system. What do these people think Pep's system is? Pep doesn't have a system. Pep changed systems like 3 times last season. There's no such thing as Pep's system. Pep has a philosophy and a style of play, and there are certain principles which are repeated over the years and across seasons. But there is no Pep system. This does not exist. So if anyone says to you, X player is bad because they're not playing in Pep's system, disregard almost everything they say on the matter because they don't actually fundamentally know what they are talking about. That's just a little that's just a little PSA thing. Barella, what, to play as a 6? To play instead of Rodri? Remember, guys, it's got to be a player who can play instead of Rodri and alongside Rodri. There we go, Pro Gamers. Just follow the Twitch. Shout out Pro Gamer. Big up to you. Again, it's just LNobbins on Twitch. We're gaming tonight. We're playing Chain together with my friend tomorrow. It's going to be absolute chaos. I was so crap last time. Bob can do Alfred. Yeah, Nick, exactly. Lots of players can do the job as a striker. Lots of players can do the job in the middle as well. Miguel from Girona will sign for City next season. He would have signed for City this season, but UEFA play some ownership rules. Is that a good source, B? Is that a good source? Chiesa, but no, right, guys. You are recommending me players who can't play as a 6 instead of Rodri. You got to bear in mind, can the player play instead of Rodri? It's not good enough to just be alongside and ahead of. They also have to be a replacement 6 in certain games. That is the player we need. So people suggesting Jack Grealish. I don't know. Don't know what's going on there. To be fair, what if Holland got injured? What if anyone gets injured? Like, you can't have, 22 pure starters who are there. You've got to have players who are able to do other positions, and that's why we discussed the false 9 situation. Can I go now? No. So Mendy, I've not seen nearly enough of Mendy. I obviously saw the second half against England. It's very good. As I understand it, though, he's a 6 rather than a 6. But if he can play as an 8, I'll be all over it. But I'd rather assign an 8 who can play 6 rather than a 6 who can play as an 8. Yaka, stop saying Kalnoglu. I've said I don't know. Probably not. Stop the spam, please, or a moderator will time you out. Thank you very much. Yeah, big up MCFC, big up. I just said what I thought about Zubimendi. Dumfries, I don't like Dumfries. Talk to Judge Mo about Denzel Dumfries. Talk to Judge Mo about it. Right, guys. I feel like we've reached the climax of what we want to discuss today. Just touch on monitor. Is there anything else that you guys would like to briefly discuss within the next sort of 15 or so minutes, 10, 15 or so minutes? Let me know. I feel like we've touched enough on the Álvarez situation, the Rodri situation. Is there anything else that we would like to discuss? Sorry. Bernardo Silva is a 6. The solution? No. If you bump into me at the Etihad, Louis, on a game day, then obviously I'll come over and say hi. But I'm not going to like directly meet up with you because that would be a bit weird, as I say. I've met lots of people at the Etihad. I think on the last day of the season, like 5 people in total came up to me and said, "I like your content," which is very kind and very lovely, of course. It's always really lovely when that happens. They just go, "Oh, I like your videos, by the way." Oh, thank you. And we have a little chat. It's very cute. So if you guys ever see me in person, feel free to come over and say hi. As I say, I obviously go to the home games at the Etihad in the league. So if you ever spot me, don't be weird. But if you're nice, I'll be nice back to you, obviously. Who'll play Savio or Bob at the right wing? Good question. I think that we might see more of Savio out on the right than Bob, I think. But because I think that Bob might see a lot of false 9 minutes, to be honest. Where do you see Bernardo playing this season? Savinho and Bob on the right. Do you guys prefer to say Savio or Savinho? I think I prefer to say Savio, but I might just like dip in and out. I might sometimes say Savio, I might sometimes say Savinho. But yeah, because like Bernardo, and this is what we were talking about earlier, Gingerwig. Because I was stressing's not the right word, but I was confused, contemplating where Bernardo would play, because I was looking at the right, and again, his right wing work is waning. Bob and Savio I'd rather play there. And in the middle, you're looking at, Foden, De Bruyne, etc. Bernardo could be a false nine option, because again, he did play there a lot when we played false nine football. So I think that could be an option, definitely. But the thing with Bernardo is I just think that he'll end up playing everywhere. Again, I think he'll play a bit on the right, a bit in the middle, a bit of false nine. I'd like to see him more so false nine. I prefer Savio. He wants Savinho. I think Savio sounds better, to be honest. I'm just going to call him Savio. I'll be real. He had Savio on his shirt last season for Girona, and his birth name is Savio, as I understand it. I'm going to call him Savio, to be honest. It'll be like, when Javier Hernandez played for United, and some people called him Hernandez, some people call him Chicharito. It doesn't matter, ultimately. I'm just going to call him Savio. It's like I call Haaland Haaland, because I prefer to call him Haaland, because that's the Norwegian pronunciation. Both are correct, aren't they? It doesn't matter. It's like me. You guys can call me Nobbins. You can call me LNobbins. You can call me Nobbs. You can call me Nob. I don't mind. I don't mind. Starting lineup in the Community Shield. It's a tricky one, Arian, because I don't actually know who's back and available. I don't think that we've got any of the English players, do we? I don't think we've got any of the... Do we have any of the Euros players? So we're not going to have Doku, Rodri, none of the English players, as I say, so no, apart from Grealish, no Foden, no Stones, no Walker. So you'd expect Nobber as well, yeah? So you'd expect it to be like Ortega in goal. Gvardiol. This is probably why I should have been watching pre-season. I don't know who's available. I don't know if Ake's back. I don't know if Ruben Diaz is back. Rico Lewis, a right back maybe. Again, I'm just trying to think who is available. Kovacic, Nunes, Haaland, Grealish, Savio. You can probably make a team out of those names probably, something like that. It will be as strong as Pep can make it. The front three will be good. You could easily have Grealish, Haaland, and Bob, for example, or maybe bring on Savio. Because I don't know how much Savio's played pre-season, but Bob has played a lot, so I expect the front three to be Grealish, Haaland, Bob. If that was the case, I would expect Kovacic and Nunes to be in the middle, alongside, again, maybe Lewis out and out in midfield. I don't know. Maybe Nico O'Reilly in midfield. In which case you could play Lewis in defence, and again Ortega in goal, Gvardiol, and again depending on fitness, can Ake and Kanji / Diaz play? I don't know, but there we go. Those players are probably going to play. Where do you rate Walker and Premier League all-timers? Do not let last season trick you into thinking that Kyle Walker is not the greatest right back in Premier League history. Let's not try to erase what a player he was from 2012 through to 2023. For around a decade. He was unbelievable. My opinion, he's the greatest. If you're making an all-time Premier League team, Kyle Walker must be your right back. IMO. I think he's overtaken Zabaleta now. I think he's overtaken Gary Neville. I think he's overtaken Ivanovic. I think he's overtaken Laurent. So yeah, that's the thing. Probably Grealish to start because Doku was at the Euros, obviously, whereas Grealish has been playing pre-season. So I think that would be the case. Is Savio a good replacement? I did an analysis video on Savio, Abdi, so if you want to go give that a watch, would recommend. Or take a start more. I hope not. Hopefully it will be Edison. Hopefully it will be Edison. Sancho to play as a striker. I forgot Sancho was a United player, to be honest. Gvardiol's position this season. Interesting question. We got over 200 likes, by the way, guys. Good work. Well done. I'm happy with that. Good work. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you for that, lads. I think that we might see more of Gvardiol at centre-back this season. Left centre-back. I think that... Because I just can't legislate for Stones being fit. It wouldn't surprise me if the main back four next season was Akanji, Diaz, Gvardiol, Ake. and Stones wasn't able to, because again, due to injuries. Hopefully not, hopefully he does play. But I think there is definitely a world where Gvardiol plays left centre-back. And if he can learn the Stones role, which is what I hope he can do, it's much better. Pep has established, he's decided, Mahmoud, can you stop spamming United lineup, or a moderator is going to time you out? Thank you. Pep has established he prefers his inverting or progressing defenders to go from centre-back into midfield rather than full-back there. So it makes sense for Gvardiol to do that. Mahmoud, chill out. Stop spamming United lineup. I don't know what the United lineup's going to be, but if you keep spamming it, mate, you're going to get timed out. So stop. Thank you. Pep to go hoofball, less of that. I liked Pedro Neto. I like the look of him. I like Nico Williams, though. He's my favourite non-City winger, to be honest. To be honest. Would you mind if City sign a natural striker to replace Álvarez? I wouldn't be mad, but I think it would be a bad decision. Yeah, I think it would be a silly call to do that, to be honest with you. I think that would be a silly call. Is Cancelo back in City this season? Hopefully not. Do you think City should go for Xavi Simons as an Álvarez replacement? No, I don't think so. If De Bruyne isn't club captain this season, it's a disgrace. We discussed the players just then. Again, I don't know who it could be exactly, but again, up top, you could have Grealish, Hall, and Bob. You could have players like O'Reilly, Kovacic, Nunez in the middle. You can have Lewis, Gvardiol at the back. I just don't know what the fitness situation is like for the other players, because again, so many were involved deep in the Euros. Cancho's best centre back in the Euros. I see him alongside Diaz and Gvardiol. Still left back or centre back, says EDL. The good thing about Gvardiol is he can do both. In fairness. Right, guys. We're going to end it here. Thank you so much for joining me. Really hope you've got some value out of this stream. If you missed the start of it because you joined from LB's stream, go back and revisit the start where we discussed the whole situation, Ari Álvarez and the minutes and the output, etc., etc., etc. So feel free to go enjoy that. I'll be back on Thursday at 1 p.m. again. But I'm also, guys, if you can't get enough of my content, I'm literally live tonight on Twitch. LNobbins. It's the exact same username as my YouTube. It's just LNobbins. We're going to be playing a story-based game tonight. We're going to play Chained together tomorrow night with my Man United friend, who you know, I discussed him earlier. Absolute chaos. It's a more chill. We still talk about football there, but it's more a chilled out vibe. So if you want to talk about anything like life or football, or just watch me be shit at games, the Twitch is the place to be. As I say, it's just LNobbins. Go follow there. If you don't have an account, it's free to make one. It's the exact same format. It's a live stream service. I thought you said a Wednesday. Well, we're tonight and Wednesday for that, but Touchline Talks back on Thursday. No, you are right. Sorry, yeah, you are right. No, Wednesday. No, Thursday. No, it's that 1 p.m. then. I've got the timings wrong then. It shouldn't be Thursday. I need to change that time because I'm going to go see my nana on Thursday. Manza has just followed the Twitch. That's what happens if you follow the Twitch as well. You get like a little alert thing. So well done, Manza, for following the Twitch. Shout out to you, mate. Let me know who that is in the YouTube chat. Pro Gamer followed the Twitch early as well, so did Manza. Yeah, okay. Touchline Talk might be 11 a.m. on the Thursday, because I've just realised that I can't do 1 p.m. due to other commitments. I'll figure it out. I'm pretty sure it will be 11 a.m. though. Yeah, I'll change that there. Good. Watchalong play versus world-class left wingers like Vinicius. Yeah, it's Akanji must be our starting right back next season. Anyway, guys, go follow the Twitch. Go do what Manza did. I'll be back tonight on the Twitch and tomorrow night on the Twitch, so I'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, big up to you, Manza. Big up to you. I'll see you then, guys.